Here we are. It's Shakespeare Sunday. Anthony and Cleopatra time. And here is my face. That's my face right there. YouTube people already had my face. But on, not YouTube, Facebook. I get so confused between Facebook and YouTube. And they're totally different. But basically, Facebook people already had my face. And I clicked the thing and I came on YouTube. What a wonderful thing dual streaming is. Hello everybody. Very excited to be here for today's Shakespeare Sunday. It's Anthony and Cleopatra. I don't know this story even slightly, not even a little bit. I mean, I think I know the vague history of it. I think I know basically that she snuffs it in the end, and one would guess he probably does. It's Shakespeare. But I don't know anything about it, haven't read it, don't know anything about it. There we go. I hope you're all doing well. First job when you get to any of my live streams is start telling people about it. Share it on your Facebook pages, on any of your social media. Just say, hey people, get to Shakespeare Sunday right now so we can Shakespeare together. Let's see. Has anybody been saying anything that I want to read? Oh, a couple of people. We've got hello Duncan from Tanzania. Your cover photo looks as though you are pondering whether to be or not to be. Very Shakespearean. Do you know what? I took hundreds of photos of me just holding this book like this and pulling funny faces, and that was the only one where I didn't look ridiculous. So thank you for that. I'm glad I look deep and meaningful rather than just desperate to find any expression that works. Do say hello in the comments if you're watching. Just say hello in the comments. I'm fine. Just say hello. Megan, for example, she has said hello in the comments, and I will say back to Megan, hello Megan. Same goes for Facebook. It's probably a little bit better if you go onto YouTube, but it's not really that much different. So feel free, just stay on Facebook if you want, but the link is in the description if you want to pop over. How have we all been doing this week? That's what I want to know. How have we all been doing? Because I haven't done a stream since Thursday, so I've had Friday and Saturday where I've had no streaming. How have we been? What are the best things that have happened to us? If you can write them in some kind of Shakespearean language, so much the better. But just tell me how you've been. Now, there is something I need to do. I need to just start over on my Facebook page. I just need to be able to see the stream there so that I know what's going on. So I just click on this and there we go. So now I've got any comments people say on Facebook will come up. Any comments people say on YouTube will come up in this one. Tamsin, for example, has just said hello Megan and Esme and Granny and Grandpa. So they're just having a chat over there, and quite right too. Alex McNeese has just started watching on Facebook. Hello Alex. Chris, I think this might be one of the first times you've come to one of my streams. I think you might have been to one or two in the past, but Chris has just said hello Duncan. Lauren has said, hey, hope you're okay. Well, I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm feeling great. I'll tell you why I'm okay. I've been obsessing over the film Coco recently. And boy, it is such a good film. It is ridiculously good. It's so beautifully constructed, so very charming. And the music, I love diegetic music. It's wonderful in a musical. That's how I like my music to be in a musical. Diegetic means it's part of the story. The characters are aware of it. I love it. Love it. And I just think, can't get enough of it. So tell me how you've been. Tell me how you've been. If this is your first Shakespeare Sunday, let me tell you what goes on. I've got a big box here of Shakespeare stories. That's why it says the Shakespeare stories on it. And it's got 16 Shakespeare stories in it. And we've already done 8 of them. We've done Macbeth, Tempest, Twelfth Night, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Taming of the Shrew, didn't like that one, and Julius Caesar. And today we're doing Antony and Cleopatra, which is very exciting for me because, like I said, I don't know it. And they are story versions of the plays, so I don't play every part. And I've no idea what to expect from the voices. I like to make up voices as I go. But it's just a way of us sort of understanding these Shakespeare stories a little bit better without having to go through the rigmarole of sitting, for example, through 5 hours of Hamlet. We can do all of that in 25 minutes of Shakespeare story. So do feel free to go back over past videos and watch them to find out what's going on in Shakespeare in the past. Obviously all Shakespeare's in the past. And we will just crack on here. Let's just see if I am missing any of your... Oh, look, I think I am missing a few of your comments, actually. We've got The Real Power of Music has just said, I'm on YouTube. So you are. But you did also pop up on my Facebook, Alex. Oh! Chris Cummins, honestly, I'm so rubbish at remembering who's who, that names just, honestly, yeah, I know you're usually here, Chris. But I just didn't... I pay more attention, really. That's what I need to do. Right, so I feel like we're approaching starting the stream time. So let me just get this up. Now, look, have you noticed I've down the bottom here this is on YouTube, I've added a little partially see-through thing. That's cool. I made that myself. It's cool, isn't it? Look at that. Look at that. You can sort of see my hand behind it. Not behind the writing, but behind the little box it's in. Did that myself with my own little skillful graphic skills. So if you want to say, well done, Duncan, I will accept all positive feedback. I will also accept you going, ooh, when I press this button and this book comes up. Ooh. I mean, I went, ooh. I hope you went, ooh. You better have gone, ooh. You didn't go, ooh, I'm going to be very upset. So, Antony and Cleopatra. First thing I always do is read through the cast list. I do this for two reasons. One, so we can have a vague idea of what's coming up. And two, so that I can start thinking up the voices I'm going to give them in my head. So we've... Oh, it's a small one, this one. We have got Servius, the storyteller, bodyguard to Antony. Mark Antony is his full name. Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. She's coming at you. That's an old joke, that, isn't it? Mark Antony, one of the 3 rulers of Rome. The Triumvirate. I think I might have studied this period in history. Forgotten about it, though. Octavius Caesar and Lepidus, rulers of Rome with Antony. The Triumvirate, the 3 of them in charge. And Antony's generals. I like it. That's it. So really, I've got to get voices. They're all going to have the same like posh voice, aren't they? You've got the storyteller, Cleopatra, Mark Antony, Octavius and Lepidus. I'll tell you what, I'll give Lepidus a bit of a weird voice. I'll try that. And Antony's generals, they can all be like, yeah, okay. So, but they're all like, I don't know. We'll work it out. So, Antony and Cleopatra. Let me just check that I haven't missed any comments before we get going. Oh, Esme says, sorry, I'm late. You do not have to be sorry for being late. I'm just grateful that you're here. That's all that it takes. Well done. Absolutely outstanding. I'm presuming that absolutely outstanding is for my amazing graphic down the bottom here and for my book coming up here. On Facebook, if people are watching on Facebook, I'm just dancing to nothing. But if you're on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about with my graphics. What I need is 2 different streaming programs so I can go, oh, there's a great, Helen has been up to a great jazz street party in Mayfield Road. Will Wright celebrating his 50th. We gate crashed for a couple of hours. That sounds incredible. That sounds so cool. I wish I'd been, particularly since I'm a jazz man. I'm a jazz man. True story. So, and Esme has just been doing a book badge for Cubs. That's cool. Do you know, I didn't get many badges in Cubs. I was a bit, I'm not going to say I was naughty back then, but I was... They asked me to leave eventually. They asked me to leave Cubs. And then I had an epiphany, and now I'm a very good boy. Antony and Cleopatra. Are we ready? You want to know about Antony and Cleopatra? Let me tell you the story. The real story. I was there at the start. The night Julius Caesar was killed and Antony made a speech over his body in the marketplace. Now, by the way, if you were here last week, you'll remember that speech over the body of Caesar. I come here not to bury Caesar, but to praise him, or something like that. I can't remember. Friends, Romans, countrymen, that was the one. As soon as Antony stood before us, pale and proud in the torchlight, my heart went out to him. He spoke in a voice like the beating of a war drum, and by the time he had finished speaking, I knew I would follow him anywhere. To the shores of Hades and beyond, if he asked me to. Hades, of course, if you don't know, being the afterlife. When I thought Hades was Greek. Shows what I know. When civil war, maybe they've got one in both. When civil war broke out, I was one of the first to join Antony's legions. It was a bitter, bloody struggle. Roman against Roman, each believing that right was on his side. I was commended for my courage in action, though all I did was keep my head and obey orders. And Antony himself promoted me to the rank of centurion. Nice one, centurion. Just before the Battle of Philippi. That's where I got this scar on my neck, but I was lucky. Braver men than I died that day, including Brutus, who killed himself to escape the shame of defeat. Antony wept at the sight of Brutus's corpse, and many of us wept with him. Then came the peace, though few believed it would last. The empire was carved like a goose and divided between the three victors. War makes for strange alliances, but none as strange as that trio. Octavius Caesar, Julius Caesar's nephew, was as ruthless and cold as Antony was warm and generous. Lepidus, the third ally, was a joke, a jellyfish with no sting. Caesar took the west, Antony the east, and Lepidus the African provinces that were left over. Sounds like a recipe for disaster, this, by the way. If you've read Lear, you know dividing stuff up doesn't work. Almost straight away, there was trouble in the east. The Parthians invaded Roman territory, and Antony sailed out with his legions to deal with them. There was a battle of sorts. The Parthians were poorly armed and undisciplined. Most of them turned and ran the moment they saw sunlight shining on our shields. After the victory, Antony called me to his tent. "Well, Servius," he said, "your centurion days are over." I thought he was going to pension me off and send me back to Rome. "Why, sir?" I protested. Antony gave me one of his boyish grins. "Because I want you to join my bodyguard," he said. "I need good fighters about me, men that I can trust. And I know I can rely on you." Well, I was lost for words. My heart beat so proudly that I thought it would burst my armour. "We leave for Tarsus tonight," Antony said. I have commanded Queen Cleopatra of Egypt to meet me there, to answer the charges that she supplied Brutus with troops and money. I want you at my side. I wouldn't put it past her to slip a hired assassin into the crowds. While I've breath in my body, sir, no assassin will get past me to strike at you, I said, and I meant every single word. There was gossip on the road to Tarsus, all of it about Cleopatra, and little of it worth repeating. Men said she was a beauty who had charmed Julius Caesar and made him fawn over her like a dog. Now, the story went, she planned to do the same with Antony, but I would have none of it. Caesar was past his prime, I said. Antony is still young, and his wife is a member of one of Rome's most powerful families. It will take more than some Egyptian woman to make him forget where his loyalties lie, even if she is a queen. How the gods must have laughed when they heard that. Well, a few days later, I was on the quayside at Tarsus with Antony, waiting for Cleopatra's royal barge to arrive. It was more than 2 hours late, and Antony was annoyed. "This is an insult," he kept muttering. "That little Nile serpent means to make me look like a fool." But at last we heard distant voices on the wind, women's voices, singing a twisting, slithering melody that my ears couldn't follow. Cleopatra's barge rounded a bend in the river. and the watching crowds gasped. The hull, deck and oars of the barge had been gilded so that the boat looked like fire burning on water. Gilded means it's been covered in gold. I'm sure you know that, but just checking. The sails were deep purple and scented, and the breeze that filled them carried the fragrance across the harbour. Remind me at the end of the story to tell you what I know about purple dye back in the day. Just remind me. I will forget. I breathed the perfume of Egypt for the first time, a spicy, honeyed smell that made my head swim. The barge drew close and I caught my first glimpse of Cleopatra. Her robes were cloth of gold and she wore the crown, double crown of Egypt. Her skin was golden brown, her hair black and glossy as a horse's flanks. That's complimentary, isn't it? You look like a horse's flanks. Imagine if I tried that one with my wife. She's got really brown. She dyes her hair now, but she used to have really dark brown hair. Imagine I'd gone up to her when I met her and went, "Hello, I have to say that you look like the side of a horse." Wouldn't have worked as well as whatever I did. I don't know what I did. But it worked. Anyway, her hair was black and glossy as a horse's flanks. Her huge dark eyes were deep and still. I'd heard tales that Helen of Troy was the most beautiful woman ever, but when I saw Cleopatra, I knew that Helen had been eclipsed. "This is no queen," Mark Antony said softly. "This is a goddess." All right, control yourself, Mark. You don't know what she's like yet. She might be horrible. Very shallow, the people in Shakespeare's stories, aren't they? Like, ooh, best. Mind you, again, that's what I was like with my wife. So I'll let him off a little bit. Cleopatra stepped out onto the quay, and the cheering crowd sounded like storm waves breaking. Antony stepped forward and said, "It is in the name of the Senate and people of Rome that I greet you, and I require you to..." He broke off in astonishment as Cleopatra knelt at his feet and bowed her head. Well, the crowds, they fell silent. Antony frowned and bent down and helped Cleopatra to her feet. "My noble lord does me too much honour," she said, her head still lowered. "There is much to discuss," said Antony, "but this is not a fit place. Dine with me tonight in the city." "No, my lord," Cleopatra said. No was not a word that Antony was used to hearing, and he stiffened in anger. But then Cleopatra looked up at him. "Dine with me on my barge," she said. "Let me see if my Egyptian cooks can please you. Eat with me and taste new delights, my lord." She's the queen. She's calling him lord. She knows what she's doing. Flattery. Bending the knee to get what you want. "Oh, yes, sir." Tugging the forelocks. Sneaky, sneaky. I like it. I knew then that he had fallen in love with her, as surely as if I had seen one of Eros's arrows pierce his heart. Within a week, we set sail for Egypt, and nothing was ever the same again. Egypt was another world. Beyond the Nile's green valley stretched the desert, unchanging and timeless. In Egypt, the years slipped away like a handful of water. Antony grew older and softer. He seemed to care for nothing but Cleopatra and their children. They had children. Oh, I see. Years slipped away. I thought that meant that it was like they'd gone back in time. I've just realised we've now gone forward in time. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention to my own story. So now they've got kids. He seemed to care for nothing but Cleopatra and their children. Some of the soldiers became restless, saying Antony was not the man he had once been, and that Cleopatra had bewitched him. Another recurring thing in Shakespeare's stories is that women can't just be like powerful and strong, and the people have to change to be with people. It's not always great. It's a couple 100 years old, 450 odd years old. We'll let them off. 500 years old, probably. Anyway, we won't get caught up on the dates. Such talk made me angry. You'll see Antony's greatness again when the time comes, I said. And the time came. There was chaos in Rome. Antony's wife, Fulvia, and Lucius, his brother, raised an army to overthrow Octavius Caesar, but they were crushed in battle. Fulvia died on her way to see Antony in Egypt. She was going to go and see him. He's got a new woman. I wonder how that would have gone down. I suspect an inside job. I'm joking. At the same time, Sextus Pompeius rebelled against Caesar, and the Parthians invaded the Roman territories at their borders. The world of Rome seemed about to collapse. I was with Antony when the dispatches reached him. His face darkened as he read them, and for a long time he brooded in silence. "Is it true, Servius?" he asked at last. "Am I really as old and weak as they say?" "You are Mark Antony, sir," I told him. Something of an old look shone in Antony's eyes. "I will go to Rome and settle my differences with Caesar," he said. "If he, I, and Lepidus make peace with Pompeius, we can put our forces together, defeat the Parthians, and save Rome before it is too late." Then his face fell. "But what shall I tell the Queen?" he murmured. Cleopatra stormed and wept and pleaded, but at last she saw that she had no choice but to let Antony go. She feared he would not return, but I knew that his love for her was too strong. Back in Rome, Antony was a grizzled lion, Caesar a cold and haughty eagle, and Lepidus a crab scurrying beside them. They talked behind locked doors late into the night, and standing guard outside, I heard Antony and Caesar raise their voices in anger, while Lepidus twittered and whined. Antony emerged from the chamber looking tired and worried. He took me aside and said, "I want you to leave for Egypt at once. Tell the Queen that I have made my peace with Caesar." I frowned. This was good news, but Antony's face was troubled. "But the peace came at a price," he went on. "To strengthen the alliance, I must marry Octavia, Caesar's sister. Tell the Queen that the marriage means nothing, and that my love for her is unchanged. I will return to Egypt with Octavia when we have signed a treaty with Pompeius." Doubts rose in my mind like a flock of crows. All Rome knew how dearly Caesar loved his sister. How long would it be before he discovered that Mark Antony's marriage to her was a sham? It would be all the excuse he needed to declare war and try and seize the whole empire for himself. And when Cleopatra heard of the marriage, who could tell what she might do? I glimpsed Antony's future, and it was all blood and shadows. Didn't sound good, does it? I had no flowery words to decorate Antony's message. I spoke out like a soldier, plain and blunt. Cleopatra's rage was furious. "Tell me that you are lying, or you shall be whipped with wire and boiled in salted water," she shrieked. "Madam, I speak the truth," I said. "Antony is married to Octavia." Cleopatra drew a knife. I don't know whether she intended to stab me or herself. for one of her handmaidens snatched the knife away. Cleopatra shook her head, scattering tears that gleamed as they fell. Then let Egypt sink into the Nile, she moaned. Let the sky fall and crush the earth. Ah, he's only a bloke, you'll get over it. Egypt did not sink, nor did the sky fall, but one terrible happening led to another. Before Antony and Octavia were halfway to Egypt, Caesar broke the treaty with Pompeius, defeated him in battle, and seized the African provinces that he had Lepidus put to death. Antony knew that war was coming, and he sent Octavia back to Rome, being too honourable a man to keep her as a hostage. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Like you're honourable if you don't. That's the measure of honour. I've never kept anyone hostage, therefore I'm an honourable man. It's a very low bar for honour. Anyway, once Antony was back in Egypt, he and Cleopatra joined forces against Caesar. Their love remained strong. Some of the fire between them had dwindled because of Antony's marriage of convenience. But Antony seemed his old self again, confident, indecisive, also headstrong, as if age had made him stubborn instead of wise. Against all advice, he insisted on a battle at sea to prevent Caesar from landing his troops. Antony's generals were in despair. "This is madness, sir," one of them was brave enough to tell him. "The enemy ships greatly outnumber us. If we lose this fleet, we cannot keep our troops supplied. Fight Caesar on land." "Let no man say that Antony feared to face an enemy," Antony replied. "I will meet Caesar at sea." Yeah, there's bold, mate, and there's stupid. Just saying. Okay, do what you want. But if you're going to lose, you might as well lose on land. Anyway. Actium, they called that battle. I still dream of it and wake up shouting. The ships fired flaming pitch and sulphur at one another. Burning men leapt screaming into the sea, and when the two ships came alongside, soldiers from each tried to board the other, so the decks ran red. For a time it seemed that Antony might be victorious, but then love betrayed him. Cleopatra sailed out in her barge, thinking that the sight of her would encourage Antony and the Egyptian fleet, but the horror and slaughter of the battle made her order the barge back to the harbour. A Roman galley broke formation to give chase, and Antony turned his ship around to go to Cleopatra's rescue. When the captains of the fleet saw their commander leave the fight, they believed all was lost and they fled. After the disaster at Actium, Antony bargained for peace. He offered Caesar his third of the empire in return for being allowed to stay in Egypt with the queen. Caesar refused. He would only make peace with Cleopatra, he said, if Antony were executed. Antony accused Cleopatra of betraying him out of spite for his marriage to Octavia. Cleopatra was terrified by Antony's fury and went into hiding. The generals had their land battle in the end outside the walls of Alexandria. We fought like heroes, and Caesar's men fell like wheat to the scythe. But even as the celebrations began in Antony's tent, a new messenger arrived with grave news. The Egyptian fleet had surrendered. Antony could no longer keep his army fed and armed. The war was lost. Antony ordered everyone from the tent except me, and when we were alone he drew his sword and offered it to me, hilt first. "Kill me, Servius." This is just like Brutus's end in the last book. "Kill me, sir." Oh, I said it in the wrong voice, didn't I? "Kill me, Servius," he said. "I cannot bear to beg Caesar for mercy." "Sir," I said, "I know where the queen is hiding. You could be with her in an hour. You could escape to live in fear until Caesar hunts us down," said Antony. "No, Servius, I am finished. Take the sword. End it." Not I, sir, I said. I would gladly die for you, but I will not kill you. I cannot do what you ask. Then by my own hand be it, said Anthony. He stabbed with both hands, but the point of the sword slipped on his breastbone and ran into his belly. This is gruesome. Look at this picture. There you go, look. That's monstrous. He pulled out the sword and threw it across the tent with a cry of disgust, knowing that his death would be long and painful. Agony drove him to his knees. Cleopatra, he gasped, take me to her. I do not know how Anthony found the strength to stand and mount a horse, but as night fell we rode across the desert to Cleopatra's hiding place, her own tomb built in the shape of a crouching lion with a man's head. The Sphinx, if you will. I beat against the doors, my shouts echoing off the stone, until a slave answered. I drew back the bolts. Anthony leaned on me and we staggered inside. The tomb was lit by 100 oil lamps that shone on the richly decorated walls. Paintings of Egyptian gods stared down with sightless animal eyes. Cleopatra was seated on a throne dressed in her royal robes, a reed basket at her feet. And I remember thinking it a poor thing to find in such a place. Why would you have a reed basket? I know what's going to happen. I'm ahead of the game on this one. Clever Duncan with his knowledge of history. Cleopatra saw the blood from Antony's wound and ran to him. We gently laid him down. Cleopatra sat and rested his head on her lap. I am dying, Egypt, Antony said. Tell Caesar you had me killed and make peace with him. Never, said Cleopatra. Antony's face clenched in pain. Then add one more kiss to the thousands you have given me, he said. Cleopatra lowered her head, pressed her lips to Antony's, and he was gone. The sun has burned out, Cleopatra whispered. The world is dark. Tears clouded my eyes. I did not see the Queen stand or reach into the basket, you know, that reed basket from before, and take out the small black snake coiled within it. When I could see again, she was on her throne and the snake's fangs were sunk deep into her chest. Sweet as perfume, she said, soft as air. Oh, Antony. And so her life ended. As they said in Round the Horn, with an asp clasped in her grasp. Anyway, and that's my story. It will be told and retold until time ends. Antony and Cleopatra will always be together, though their beauty and greatness turned to desert dust long ago. They say that in the East, Emperor Octavius Caesar is worshipped as a god. Well, if Caesar is a god, then let my death come soon, for the world is past my understanding. That's a thing to learn. But Antony, now, there was a man. Tamsin, that's a good story. That I quite like that one. That one wasn't as bad as The Taming of the Shrew, and I like it because it's a bit historical. I don't know how historical. I don't know how accurate that is. I remember studying the triumvirate. I remember studying that in history, but I think it was in the first year, which I don't want to tell you how long ago that was, but it was 30 years ago. So what are you going to do? Yeah, I like it. There were lots of very funny versions of that story, I think, over the years. But my favourite has got to be the what's it called? Round the Horn, as I mentioned earlier. I don't know if you've ever heard of Round the Horn, starring Kenneth Horne. Kenneth, the Tiddlywinky Girl Horne. Brilliant radio programme from the 60s that I used to listen to all the time. And in fact, still do. I've got them all on my phone. Love it, love it, love it, love it. So that's my favourite version. But yeah, there's countless. Obviously, there's got to be one. There's got to be a Carry On Cleo. Yeah, that's the one. So there's that there as well. Anyway, that's the story. That's this week's Shakespeare Sunday. Thank you. I've had a couple of comments here. Me and Granny, so that's Esme and her Granny were doing the book badge for Cubs. Great stuff. Well, you could say that you've kind of read this. That's one of the books you can say you've done. Tamsin, you see, I told you I'd forget. Tell us about purple dye, Duncan. First off, she also made a joke. Sounds like she was a bit hysterical. Ha! It's not story and joke time, but that's a good one. Look, I've got a gesture with this hand, look, if I gesture, because my light is slightly on that side, so it makes a shadow over my face. Tell us about the purple dye. Now, this is something else that I learned in history. But back in Roman times, the colour purple. Do you know they said that the colour everybody's died. Everyone always dies in Shakespeare, Esme. The colour purple was a sign of power, because it was really difficult to get the colour purple to set. So that's why when it says that the sails of the Egyptian ships were all purple, think how big ship sails are. And they've got that entire thing dyed purple, and setting that would cost a fortune. So purple was a sign in fabric, was a sign of power and wealth. And I think there are even laws about who could wear purple. Might be getting that mixed up with Elizabethan times. But that purple meant power. But what I was told in history, and I've now I think about it, never ever checked up to find out if this is true. But the way that they used to, so it might not be true, so don't hold this. That thing about purple being power, that's definitely true. But the other bit, this bit I'm about to tell you might not be. But the way that they used to set the dye was using, I believe, ammonia. I don't know if you know, ammonia is in hair dye as well, to make your hair dye set. And ammonia has a very, if you ever had Copydex, which also has ammonia in it, it has a very distinctive smell, and that smell is one of wee. Yes, wee. And the reason ammonia smells of wee is because there's ammonia in your wee. That's a true story. And what they used to do is they used to have outside shops and things in the street in Rome. Again, don't take my word for this because I might be getting my things mixed up. I'm pretty sure this is true. They used to have pots outside, and people used to go to they used to do their business, number ones, in the street in those pots, and then they would be gathered up, and the ammonia would be used to set the purple dye. And that is, as far as I'm aware, a true story. So there you go. That's why I wanted to tell you about purple dye. That if things back in the day were dyed purple, they were probably dyed purple using wee. There we go. Now you know, or at least you know what I think I know. Once we've finished here, I'm going to Google it to find out if it's true. There we go. Now, thank you so much for joining me. While you're deciding, I'll tell you what our options are. What have we got left? We've got As You Like It, Henry V, King Lear, Merchant of Venice, Much Ado About Nothing, Othello, and Richard III. Those are our remaining stories. Do tell me what you want, and while you're doing that, I will say my usual stuff. Now, tomorrow, there are 2 live streams that I'm doing. This is my part of the 2-week cycle where I do 4 live streams in 42 hours. It's a bold time in my life. So tomorrow, 10:30, Toddler Tune Time. Always really, really good fun. I know a lot of people do work at that time. Don't feel bad about not being with me. You see me enough. But thank you very much for all the time you do join in. Tanner's Wee. Richmond has just said on Facebook, Tanner's Wee. Now, I know Tanner is somebody who prepares leather. So maybe that's another thing. Maybe I'm getting those stories mixed up. Or maybe they're both true. I don't know. But Tanner's Wee. Thank you for telling me about Tanner's Wee, Richmond. And actually, now... no, I'm not, Helen, and I shan't read that out. Now, Richmond's on, and that's brilliant that Richmond's on Facebook, because I can tell you about 10:30 tomorrow is Toddler Tune Time. At 1 o'clock tomorrow, I will be doing a Headstrong Singers session like I did 2 weeks ago. So Richmond, please join me for that. That will be here on my Facebook page and here on my YouTube page, both Duncan Morris Duncan the Singer. You're more than welcome to join me for that. And then Tuesday will be another Toddler Tune Time at 10:30. So we've got 10:30 tomorrow. Well, I don't know what that was. That's not 10 or 30. 10:30 tomorrow, then 1 p.m. tomorrow, and then 10:30 on Tuesday as well. So they're both true. Richmond says they're both true. And do you know what? Richmond is a very, very intelligent man who knows a lot of stuff. So I do not doubt that for a moment, Richmond. So thank you for letting me know that. Yes, please, 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 please join me for those. That would be brilliant. Now, you need to decide which story I'm reading next week, because it's you that makes the decision. Let me tell you what the options are again. As You Like It, Henry V, King Lear, Merchant of Venice, Much Ado About Nothing, Othello, and Richard III. Those are your options. Whoever says it first on Facebook or on YouTube will do. Next week, can we have As You Like It, please? Thank you, Duncan. It has been brilliant. Can't wait for Wednesday. Lots of love. Megan. Oh, Megan, that's very kind of you. It's a shame we can't see you more, Megan, but I know you've got loads and loads of stuff to do. You're a busy, busy young lady, Megan. But thank you for your kind words. And I will see you, and we will have As You Like It. Since you asked for it, that's what we're having. Let me get it out, because if I get it out, then I remember which one we're doing. And what I do is I replace it with the one we've just done. So there we go. As You Like It next week. This is another one I know absolutely nothing about. I've got a feeling there are some films that are based on As You Like It. So I might find out what they are. So I've got a vague idea of the plot. But yes, very much looking forward to that. As You Like It next week. Please all take very, very much care. Esme says, bye Duncan, thank you for keeping me smiling. Ah, that's nice. Thank you for your stories. Stay safe, everyone. Take care. And I would second that. Please stay safe and take care. Tamsin, thank you for your kind words. Another super Shakespeare Sunday. Oh, you softy. Thank you, Duncan. Well, no, thank you guys for joining in. Thank you for being here. And I shall leave you on, first off, I shall close down the Facebook page. No, the YouTube page. So there's the YouTube. There's my list of stuff that's happening on YouTube. It's not here on Facebook, but on YouTube. Please, please, please join me for at least one of them, if not all of them. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. This has been Shakespeare Sunday. I've been Duncan Morris. I'll see you soon.